ki te kaupapa o te rā. Ka tū tēnei mokopono o ngā te me iro kia me I atu kia koe e te mauri o te rā. I feel very humbled to be here today. I mean, let's be honest, I think I'm only here because I'm Helen's cousin. Let's just be really honest about it. We haven't seen each other in a while. I've been on a Fulbright scholarship in Hawaii. And so I feel like this is really an excuse. So my apologies, sincerely, everybody. After Helen's kōrero, I was just saying right then, I'm feeling quite narcissistic because she speaks so eloquently about the beauty of the evolution of kotahitanga and its fruition in this form here at Te Pūtahitanga. And the last day has been transforming for me in terms of understanding and reconnecting with concepts that we grew up with as iwi Māori, and to see it manifesting in this form is very inspirational. Please indulge me as I take us through a little bit of a journey around what SME growth has been like from a personal perspective and the experimental nature of looking at business from an Indigenous perspective, from a Māori woman's perspective particularly. I've entitled this kōrero Pene Pene Te Kura because I do believe in the essence of the taonga that comes from something small. When you are a small entity and you have one employee, that's one family that you're helping out. When you have 5 employees, that's 5 families, so your reach is quite wide. It's effectively between 25 and 50 people that you're touching. My experiment that I've run for the last 17 years has been about how can we help to grow that. So when we look at the Māori economy, and there are some of us in here I know, avid advocates of the establishment of a true Māori economy as opposed to us participating in somebody else's economy. Apparently the figures are between 37 and 48 billion, of which a majority component of that is coming from SMEs, so small to medium enterprise and self-employed, are contributing 26 billion to that economy. Whereas a lot of us look to our iwi entities and our trusts to be the guru that's going to save us from ourselves. The data reflects that's not the case. So it actually does begin with us, which is why I've entitled this kōrero Pene Pene Te Kura. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Aroha mai. A little bit of a disclaimer, I think. So, in terms of worldview, so this wee whare down the bottom here, this is our whare at Mihiroa. We can house very comfortably about 40 people in that wee whare. It's 130 years old. We're currently going through a refurbishment. This whare here, my father was accused of being an embezzler for not giving out all of the rental money associated with our land in Ngātirangi, and they raised a little bit of pūtia, and together with the assistance of a large whānau, this is now our whare in Ngātirangi, just below Ruapehumaunga. And that funny looking family over there to the right, that's my father, Peter Reo, my mother, Pamela Peti Tarangi Allison, my sister Rachel, and that's me there in the front. This is at our Allison family reunion back when I was 10 years old, a wee while ago now. So that's sincere apologies if I offend anybody, it's all of those people's fault. I don't seem to have the right touch.
You're good.
Oh, okay. So my first year at law school was this conversation that I actually wanted to enrol in drama school because I thought that the people there were a hell of a lot better looking than those at law school. So I rang my father when I was 18 and I said, I've changed my mind. I feel like I'm born for the stage. And he said, we all agree, absolutely. Just get that law degree out of the way and then you can totally go into drama school. I was like, fabulous, that's only 3 years. So, you know, what happens is you get caught up in that mix, right? And then you build this network and then before you know it, you're kind of doing some work legally related or policy related. After a year of doing that, I realised I was really, really bad at it. and it just wasn't my natural fit. It wasn't my natural calling. I remember sitting in our Y262 claim, and I was junior counsel, and I looked around the room and I thought to myself, whilst we're all in here asking permission for the return of Mataruaho, our maunga at home, which was the healing place in Napier, what's the rest of the world doing? And so I went home, and my son was up because he'd been waiting for his mother to get home, and it was like 2 a.m, and he fell off the couch, and I thought to myself, I might just try this whole... does anyone in here know Robert Kiyosaki? Yeah, okay, so yeah, he talks about 6 years, right, from going from the E quadrant over to the I quadrant. And I thought, oh, well, it took me 6 years and $30,000 to get my last 2 degrees, so, oh, okay. If it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to law. So why I've put that up there, and you'd be right, is when we were growing up, my dad used to talk about how silly we were, because he would say, you know, you all agree, and I thought, what am I going to do? So I go out to their garden, and they had these fresh tomatoes, so we picked some tomatoes, and they had a loaf of bread in their freezer, and they had butter in the fridge, and I swear to God, that is the best meal I've ever had. Those tomatoes on toast. I'll never forget it. And we've been to some flash places and done some things, you know, but I will remember that for the rest of my life. It was the warmest my belly has ever been. So yeah, it gets a little bit rough along the way. Okay, yeah. But you know, the noise, right? Just the noise. So 15 years later, I put this cat up here because 15 years later we became pretty comfortable. I think I became pretty comfortable. And what I learned was that what people in the business world call customer profiling, I interpret that as our just level of manaakitanga, really. So how manaakitanga was explained to me is that you overwhelm aki, someone with your own mana, by uplifting them. So customer profiling is understanding the needs of your customer, so much so that you forsake your own immediate gratification for their need. For me, that was true manaakitanga. What I needed to learn was, there's a limit to that level of manaakitanga for each customer. But I started to comprehend these concepts through a different framework. Understanding and feeding your market. So I read all the books, and I went to all these seminars, and I even invested in a Tony Robbins course. Totally recommend it, by the way, it's amazing. But understanding and feeding your market, I understand that to be whakawhanaungatanga. So being truly committed to the ongoing relationship that you are building with this person through your product or your service, which is very different to moving product. It's a very different concept. Your unique selling point, your unique selling factor, that for me is, that understanding of self, which we heard from one of the leaders yesterday who spoke, the keynote speaker, about the wayfinding. Understanding your sense of self and sharing that authentically with the world is difficult sometimes if we're not really comfortable with our authentic self. But the market, the world picks up on it. It's very hard to sustain a business or a product or a service unless you are very authentic, because the love of your mahi cannot sustain the vision and growth that will be required in order for your business to stay alive. So that sense of authenticity is essential. And rangatiratanga, as it was so eloquently described, weaving the people together, for me now has shifted to understanding how that service or product relates to a global market, which is a very different sense of manaakitanga and whanaungatanga. It's a very different way of thinking for me. So we became comfortable, like this cat here, I became very comfortable in my sense of, well, that was a great experiment. I'm very happy here, warm by the fire. And then my life changed. So sorry. We lost my niece to suicide. It changed our world. It changed our world. And we as a family sat probably for the first time in a very long time. Apologies. But she's just so beautiful, isn't she beautiful? I mean, she's just so beautiful. It changed our lives because we as a family for the first time in a long time talked about, are we busy being busy, and why are we so busy? Why aren't we making time to speak to each other and to listen and to be present? So she became my inspiration to get uncomfortable, to look deeper into myself and understand what it is that I'm not doing. What is it that I'm refusing to acknowledge? And I just kind of laugh now when I look at that photo because she is so cheeky like that. And so this point of change happened for us. It was very real. So straight after we lost Hira, I spoke to my family and said, I really need to stop and I can't go on. But I employed our family, and my mother asked me, just give your sister 2 years, because that was my sister's baby. Give your sister 2 years because she can't breathe. And so we did, and we continued to barely function. But we loved each other. We loved each other through it. That's all we could do. And then after the 2 years, I said to my sister, how do you feel? Can I go and have a bit of a break? And we had a tangi. We had a tangi and we cried. And she said, go and do what you need to do. And then Fulbright rang and said, we want you. It was almost like to the day, we want you to apply to do a scholarship. And so someone from the Institute of Directors had contacted them. And anyway, so I went for the interview, and the hardest part about that is you've got to write an essay about yourself. And I literally couldn't do it. So we were raised not to do that kind of thing, right? So a friend of mine who's a writer, I asked her, Susie, if I jot down some notes, can you please write something for me? And when I read it, I was like, wow, this person's pretty cool. Wow, Susie, you're a magician. And then they rang and said, do you want to come for an interview? And I remember the night before they flew me down to Wellington for the interview, I had this feeling like, you're going. Oh, be ready. It wasn't you're going, it was be ready. And I went to my mother's house and I cried. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, what if I get it, Mum? And she said, oh, that's the whole point, isn't it? And I said, no, but what if I do? Then I have to go. And she said, yes, you have to go. So then the next day they rang after the interview and said, you're going and you leave in like 3 months, but you can't tell anyone until we have the ceremony in Parliament, blah, blah, blah. So then I went, and this experience is amazing. So they kind of choose people around, late 30s, 40s for the 2-year, 3-year scholarship that they send you on, because now I understand it requires a huge amount of soul searching. But when I got there were like 140 people from 65 countries, and they bring us together from across the 50 states of the United States twice a year, and we share stories, and you get to choose one kaupapa from that particular conference, and everybody in the room has to focus on that one kaupapa. So yeah, we would go around the room and people would share their, well, in India we need to focus on and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So by the time it got to New Zealand, you know, we'd heard some pretty horrific stories. The guy from Libya was talking about war, and the woman from Israel was talking about 12-year-old girls being forced to join the army. And it got to New Zealand, and myself and my colleague from New Zealand, we were like, oh gosh, I'm not too sure what we're going to talk about, because comparative to the other nations around the world, I felt extremely privileged. For the first time, I felt like the rich kid in the room. So we shared what our life was like in Aotearoa, and everybody hushed us off the stage. Like, you won the lotto when you were born in New Zealand. So it's not to make light of our issues here in Aotearoa, but for me it was the first time that it heightened my awareness to a different way of living and a different framework, which required the individual to fight for their right to live. It was a very different state of mind for me. So just to share with you the one kaupapa that we were asked to work on, so when we all went around the room in India, there was a young girl, she was about 27, doing a PhD, and for the last 10 Fulbright scholars who've come out of India, they've all worked on this one piece of research, and they've found a cure for cancer. However, before they release this cure to the world, the last 9 graduates have gone missing. And so her business challenge to us was, how do I release this work to the world that I'm contributing to whilst making it to my 30th birthday? So for 2 days we rallied around and we came up with a plan that hopefully I'll get to go to her 30th birthday one day. So the issues I raise that because I want to say that the issues that we feel are very real around the world. They're experienced in different ways, but everything that we practice here is required by an international audience. So your experience is valid and your market doesn't exist just here. Your market is very much an extension of yourself as overseas. In saying that, though, it's really important that we do the work on ourselves to understand what our true offering is to the world, and that we understand how to apply that gift in different global situations. So the respect for someone else's tikanga, someone else's reo, is paramount when working with that market. But that's not a concept that's alien to us. We've been raised to respect each other's mita, rangi, kaua, in every rohe. So it's just an extension of that. But the sharing of your authentic self really elevates people. That's what I've learned, is that by sharing more of my authentic self, then I can connect better and sustain those relationships. So my new experiment is this whakaaro of 555. So it's working with 500 companies in 50 different countries over the next 5 years. And what fell out of the last 2 years for me is this kōrero around this waita program. That's something I just made up. So, whai ake I tō ake huarahi. So, understanding your true calling. That's the acronym for waita, whai ake I tō ake huarahi. And the key component to that is understanding the why. So why are you driven to do what you do? And understanding that why, sharing that why, is the story. That is your market. So the more honest you are in knowing the why, the more real you are in sharing the why. That connects you to the next stage, which is understanding who you need to be in order to attract what you're willing to attract towards you. So if you need to be the light in the darkness, then be the light. Yeah. And unfortunately, the light can't complain about the darkness because the light is the light. Yeah. So understanding your why, that will fuel your who you need to be constantly. Not just when you're at work, but in your life, who you need to be. And then by being who you need to be, it's amazing what comes, it just comes unbelievably in different ways that you could never imagine. So it enables you to tap into the part of yourself that will absolutely attract the right people toward you. You don't need to find them, they will come. Everything will come. But the hard part, the part that most of us don't want to do, is to really address the deep why and then to be. Unfortunately, I hadn't done that work before we lost our hira. And I often talk with her about that now. If I had done this work earlier, baby, would you still be here? And all I can do is hear her laugh. Like, that is such a ridiculous question. Why are you torturing yourself with that question? Like, just get on and do the mai. The other key learning for me is, and this is a constant one for me, is releasing the need to control. I don't know where that came into my life as a necessity. Like you, I've experienced elements of violence and sadness and grief in my life. And somewhere along the way, I felt the need to control every single element of my life in order to protect myself from that ever happening again. Ironically, that very thing inhibits me from being present enough to be and to elevate myself above the noise. So that's a constant work in progress for me, releasing the control. And then, the awesome part is the giving thanks for everything that needs to happen coming my way. Giving thanks for the energy to do the work that needs to be done. And this is the massive question mark in this experiment. Giving thanks for the value coming in the way that it needs to come for me, or for this kaupapa. Now, that is not your traditional business model. And someone with an executive MBA should not be promoting that. But I do. I believe in it deeply. And I've been home for, I think, 4 weeks. And I've seen this experiment move for me so fast that I haven't been able to keep up. So I share that with you with lightheartedness and with a sense of joy and with a sense of knowing it to be true. Okay, so some of the amazing 500 companies that I've had the pleasure of working with. There's a group, if any of you want to look it up, Co-Work, K-O-U, Work, W-O-R-K. It's a business incubator that was started by two Hawaiian, gorgeous young people in the heart of Kakako in Honolulu. Now that came from an idea that we had over having coffee, and they were like, you're always in our cafe. They own this cafe called the Wedding Cafe, so they're the brokers between the photographers and everybody that's required to have a wedding and the bride and groom. Anyone who goes to Honolulu to be married, they go to the Wedding Cafe. They're like, you're always in here, like, having coffee, and what do you do? You're a business consultant, you always have meetings and stuff. And I said, well, you've just got a really cool vibe. You know, you've got a really cool vibe. I dig this place. The coffee's okay. Coffee in Hawaii is pretty bad. But the vibe here is awesome. And so we talked about this vibe, and then it grew into this whakaaro around a business incubator space or a co-work share space. And now they, if you look up Co-Work, they launched their first Co-Work pad. So it's a Hawaiian space run by two young Hawaiian business owners, inviting people into their cool vibe. And that's all it is. It was just a vibe, right? And they shared this kōrero with one of their mates, who shared it with one of their mates. They were invited to this club where everybody's business is earning over 5 million, and there was a guy there who said, actually, I've got a warehouse in Kakako that's not making any money, it's just sitting there. If I invest in refurbishing it, would you run your co-work space from there? And so, you know, stuff happens, and it happened really quickly for them. And now they're launching, and they're on different journeys. So, yeah, they're one example. Volta Prima, this is my friend Anna Pira. She's an opera singer. She's come home to Hawke's Bay, and she's seen what's happening with our rangatahi. So she's using opera as a vehicle for change and leadership. And she teaches our kids how to find their inner voice. And to do that, they have to address their why and who they need to be. And then opportunities open up for them. So one of our boys from home is now studying in Italy. So she's running this school. And check out some of their YouTube clips. It's pretty cool. So this fellow down here, Russell Hata. So his family own Waihata in Honolulu. It's the largest wholesale food distributing company. And they service 3,000 to 4,000 restaurants in Hawaii. And when we were asked to do an assignment on a business, everyone was doing Apple and Google, and I fell into the Amazon trap too. Bit of a Jeff Bezos fan. But I went and spoke to this guy and said, hey, can I do your business? It's the oldest standing business in Honolulu. And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So we spent a bit of time together, and then I started volunteering for him because I was on a J1 visa, so you can't receive any money whilst you're in the United States, which is quite fabulous, actually. It limits your options around what you can and can't do. So we spent a bit of time together. He was pretty amazing. He employs like 400 people. That's where all the restaurant owners go to. So I know you have beautiful oysters here, and absolutely not contesting that whatsoever. I completely believe you. These beautiful oysters come from up our way. Well, actually, they come from the Bay of Islands. But this is from Hezekiah, who, when we first started working together, he would introduce himself by saying, I'm from a gang background, and he would share his why in a very raw fashion. And now Hezekiah stands up to promote his business, and he says, I'm the proud distributor of the most luscious natural aphrodisiac you will ever get your hands on. So we're working on a model that hopefully will assist Hezekiah to get his beautiful oysters into Russell Hata's wholesale food distribution to the 3,000 restaurants in Honolulu. My beautiful cousin, Alison Huata, is working on the Monte Musicals. This is something that they've been committed to for the last 10 years. And this year it's their 10th year anniversary. They're very open about the fact that they're not good at everything, but they honestly believe in creating new pathways for rangatahi, especially in the creative arts space. So she's very humbly asked if we could work on the expansion of her strategic alliance network in order to grow the Monte Music Awards into an international Indigenous Music Awards. So she came to Hawaii and went to their music awards, went on to Canada. And so now there's a movement that's starting around hosting the first Indigenous Music Awards here in Aotearoa, which would be massive for our economy, but more importantly, it enables a wider platform for you all to celebrate your initiatives and the promotion of the kaupapa that you're doing. Virtual medical assistant. This is a guy, Gary, who for the last 5 years has been working in the medical field in the United States, and people come in, and it's such a diverse community, they don't always speak English in the A&E room, and so he's built a tool that is kind of like on your phone. You can go through all the necessary questions before they'll admit you, and it's in any language. Gary's issue isn't the software, Gary's issue is his ability to relate to the needs of his customer. So this is an example of you can have the best product, but if you're not willing to invest in the relationship, it can absolutely stymie your progression. So I was fortunate to meet a beautiful group of people in Waianae in Hawaii, and they started their movement 30 years ago with a traditional healing centre, which advanced into a comprehensive health centre, so all of their people access free healthcare, which is an amazing coup in the United States. Moved to a boys and girls club where they run homework programs and leadership programs, and they learn their culture through the boys and girls club. And then they have a papakainga, which houses 1,000 families, and it's all very culturally based. So their papakainga is where Maui slowed down the sun, and they connect with that on a daily basis. So their latest initiative is the partnership of a retail centre in Nanakulu, which is looking to be the new Waikiki, because Waikiki's flooded, right? It's just too many people, 9 million tourists a year. And they need $10 million to, reduce their debt ratio and increase their equity. So I'm advocating on their behalf to entities in Aotearoa whom don't necessarily have a palate for international investment. We're very conservative when it looks at risk, when we look at risk and commercial investment here in New Zealand, especially our tribal entities. But what I'm promoting here is the advocation of a true hononga through business back to Hawaii. So it's a learning path. Absolutely, there's a 6% return in a US market, which isn't too bad, but you can get 6% in New Zealand. That's not the real investment. The real investment is the faith and belief in a long-term strategy that's going to see a continuation of us going back and forth and learning from each other. So that's one of the other projects. Okay, so yeah, I really agree with the previous speakers, like tapping into your true essence and understanding what Māori means for you. It was explained to me that Ma is, for, and Uri is the next 3 generations. So for me, that means constantly thinking about how what I'm doing today is affecting the next 3 generations. And then sharing your authentic self. Self-awareness and self-growth, I think, is the best thing you can invest in business. That's really the only thing. Because there's so much noise down there. It's a lot of noise, and it comes every minute, every day. And then you have to battle with your self-doubt when the noise comes. So yeah, if you can invest in your own self-awareness, it's the most valuable thing you can do. Share your passion. I know you're all really good at it. I've been completely moved in the last day, humbled by your commitment to loving one another and connecting at a very real level. Work your ass off. It's a lot of work. That's why you've got to love what you do, because then it doesn't feel like work. Laugh lots, stay focused, have fun. Kia ora tātou.